You ever had someone call the cops on you while they're standing right on your own shoreline? Tape measure in one hand, a stack of violation forms in the other? Because that's exactly what happened to me. Blue lights bouncing off the lake, sirens echoing through the cove, Karen out there in her designer shades, chin raised like she was the queen of the lake, barking at the dispatcher that I was camping illegally, breaking HOA bylaws, and demanding officers now. What she didn't know was I recorded everything, every threat, every sneaky step onto my land. And she really didn't know this wasn't just some vacation spot to me. This lake, this property, was my inheritance, passed down from a man whose name carries more weight around here than she could dream of. Before the deputy could even get a word out, Karen stabbed her finger in my tent. He's not allowed to be here. The officer glanced back and forth, and what he said next, well, that changed everything. But hang on, let me back up a second and tell you how this whole ridiculous war started. Because this wasn't about camping, not even close. This was a land fight Karen never should have picked. I spent 12 years in the Army, learned how to read land, trust silence, and stand my ground when the world's trying to shove you off it. Maybe that's why my granddad chose me to inherit the lake property. A crescent of shoreline tucked way back in a cove, water calm as glass in the morning. First time I stepped out there after his funeral, the air was sharp, pine and stone, just like those summers he taught me how to cast a line or listen before you speak. Never felt like real estate, felt like a promise. Cabin small, docks battered, but everything out there has his fingerprints. I walked the shoreline, tracing the rocks he stacked with his own hands, listening to the soft slap of water against the posts. Just for a second, it felt untouched the way he meant it to stay. Then the letters started showing up. Polite at first, then demanding. The HOA. An HOA I'd never joined, whose boundaries don't even reach my deed, declared that all lake access was under their control now. Permits, fees, compliance. Bend or else. I ignored the first couple, figured it was a mistake, but those envelopes just kept coming, sharper each time. Folks who never set foot on this dirt, suddenly dictating what I could do on it. Their obsession with the shoreline got louder, crept into every morning I tried to reclaim. I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. Not until the warnings turned to visits, and the visits turned to threats, and those threats led to that night with blue lights on the water, and Karen convinced she had jurisdiction over a legacy she never earned. That's when I knew this wasn't ending until somebody made it end. My grandfather bought that land before anybody even said the word HOA around here. Back then, the lake was wild, wrapped in cedar and scrub pine. Families just minding their own business. He found this cove on a foggy morning in 1968, fishing from an old boat. Used to say the water spoke to him. Never told me what it said, just knew this was where he wanted to anchor his life. Paid cash, bought the deed, the shoreline rights, whole thing. When all that governed this place was the change of the seasons, he built the dock himself. Every board, every nail had a story. Summer mornings, I'd sit with him at the edge of the dock, mist curling off the lake like steam, wood creaking, cold earth under our feet. He'd pass me cocoa and say, "Listen to the water. It'll tell you when something's wrong." I never understood that until now. For decades, he kept the shoreline open. Neighbors tied boats, let their kids swim, skipped rocks. No permission slip, no paperwork, just respect. The dock in old photos is covered in towels, coolers, bare feet. He believed land was to be shared with good people, and for a long time, that worked. Everybody knew the difference between generosity and ownership. Everybody but Karen. When he got older, he talked more about the land, not property, the way the wind shifted before a storm, how the cattails bent when the lake dropped, how the air smelled right before rain. Walking slower, but always dragging his fingers across the posts like greeting old friends. I didn't realize he was preparing me for something. I still remember the night he told me I'd inherit it. We sat at sunset, sky on fire, cicadas rattling, and he didn't get sappy, just looked over and said, "You're the only one who listens to this place." I nodded, not really knowing what it meant, but it stuck with me. After he passed, the place felt heavy, like it was waiting to see if I'd live up to that promise. I'd walk the shoreline, boots crunching needles, smelling sharp lake mud, hearing the waves knocking the dock. Everything whispered, "Take care of this." But I never guessed somebody would try to steal that legacy. The lake felt it first. The stillness grew tense, like it was warning me about the storm coming with sunglasses and a clipboard. Karen didn't just join the HOA. She took it over. Every neighbor warned me. She moved in 5 years ago, went from concerned resident to board member to, finally, self-appointed guardian of property value integrity. Love that phrase. Use it like a weapon. People said she kept a measuring tape in her purse, the bylaws in her glove box, just for the intimidation. Neighbors stiffened up when her name came up, started apologizing for stuff like parking too close or leaving a canoe on the shore overnight. They weren't scared of the HOA. They were scared of Karen. She didn't enforce rules, she invented them. Didn't ask questions, just handed down demands. Her idea of harmony was everybody else submitting. The first time I met her, I was fixing the dock stairs, heard sharp footsteps on gravel, looked up, and there she was. Posture stiff, sunglasses huge, ponytail pulled tight, clutching a clipboard like a shield. She knocked on my door like she owned the hinge, barely introduced herself. "We expect compliance from everyone, even legacy landowners like you," she said, crisp as cold air. I told her, steady as I could, "I'm not under your HOA." She blinked like she couldn't compute it, flipped pages on her clipboard, insisting the rules applied to me. I pointed out the water behind her, shimmering like it was laughing at the idea it could ever belong to her. Neighbors later said Karen always won through persistence. Enough letters, enough pressure, people folded. But I didn't. That bothered her. She walked away that first day looking back at my shoreline, and I knew she didn't just want compliance. She wanted the lake. I became her target, the last patch she couldn't control. The stakes built up slow. Every stone wall my granddad built, every board he hammered, every path through the cedars carried him. Protecting this place felt like honoring him. Losing it would have been like letting his memory fade away. But there were real stakes, too. Lakefront land is gold in this county. People twist rules to get a slice of shoreline. Taxes can eat you alive, and keeping up the place is work, storm damage, brush clearing, dock repairs every winter. I planned for all that. What I didn't plan for was an HOA threatening fines, trying to force me to pay them a cent for history they didn't respect. And the neighbors? They watched quietly, but you could see it in their eyes. Some slipped me encouragement. "Don't let her push you off your land." A note on my truck, "Simply stand firm." They didn't want conflict, just relief. Karen had suffocated the community with rules disguised as guidelines. My refusal to bow was like a lighthouse, proof you could still stand your ground. First real showdown came one bright Saturday. Karen showed up again, form in hand. No greeting, just "You need a shoreline usage permit." I stared at her at the paper. For what? For any recreational or maintenance activity on the lakefront. I told her, "This isn't under HOA authority." She smiled coldly. "All community-accessible waterways fall under our policies." I said I was repairing my dock on deeded land. She got up in my face. "Then you need to register your property. Legacy lots must be documented." I nearly laughed. "Register my own land with people who don't govern it? It's standard procedure," she said. I could almost hear my granddad's voice laughing in disbelief. I wasn't signing anything. She didn't like that. Told me I was making this hard. "No, you are." She walked off, but her glare told me this was just beginning. Next came the warning slips, fake fines for improper vehicle storage or unauthorized campsite. I crumpled the first citation, but the more they showed up, the more it felt like Karen was staking her claim. Signs appeared near my tent, violations pending. Cameras started showing up, volunteers snapping photos of my kayak, my cooler, even my granddad's old chair. Every little thing became a recorded violation. It was like a slow-motion siege. But the real blow was at an HOA meeting I didn't even know about. Mrs. Langley, a neighbor, stopped me to whisper, "Karen called you a non-compliant squatter, said you were destroying habitats." I wasn't even there to defend myself. Karen made sure of it. That night, sitting by the lake, I realized she was building a case. Every fake citation, every staged photo, every whisper a brick in her wall of lies. She was testing how far she could push before I snapped. It got more aggressive. Real fines in the mail, with signatures, dollar amounts, violations I'd never committed. Unregistered watercraft, unauthorized camping. They acted like I was trespassing in their kingdom. But they'd never paid taxes here, never fixed a dock, never lived through a storm out here. Then the drone started, buzzing overhead while I unloaded groceries, hovering, filming my camp. Golf cart patrols started rolling slow along the path, flashlights scanning my windows. They never said her name, but I didn't need them to. Every hour felt watched. The real twist came from a neighbor, Tom, who pulled me aside one night. She's trying to take over the whole lake. Your cove's the last launch point she doesn't control. That explained the escalation. She wasn't just enforcing rules, she was gunning for a takeover, hoping no one would notice the law was on my side. See, my granddad's deed included riparian rights. Landowners here get direct access, full enjoyment, no interference from non-governing bodies. No easement, no loophole. Because the property existed before the HOA, never joined it, it stayed independent. Karen either didn't get it or just didn't care. So I stopped playing defense and started documenting. Installed trail cams, hidden in the cedars in old birdhouses along the dock. Caught Karen trespassing 3 times in 48 hours. Once with a clipboard, once with a tape measure, once with another board member carving imaginary lines with his finger. I put up new boundary markers, painted them bright. Posted sign, no HOA jurisdiction, private property, trespassers will be recorded. It wasn't aggressive. It was a fact. Karen hated facts. And here's what matters. Trespassing law is simple. If you step onto private land without permission, after being warned, that's it. Proof wins in court, not rumors or feelings. Every time Karen crossed a line, my cameras caught it. Then came the night of the 911 call. The lake was still, moonlight on the water, my campfire crackling, the scent of pine in the air. Suddenly, sharp footsteps in the trees, Karen's voice, shrill and dramatic. Phone in one hand, violation forms in the other, narrating like she's filming an episode of Law and Order, HOA. She accused me of everything. Open flames, illegal camping, unregistered watercraft, demanded I explain myself, or this goes to the board. I just started recording. You think filming me is going to help? She sneered. I'm documenting, just like you. She dialed 911, put on her best performance for the dispatcher. He's dangerous, refusing to leave. I feel unsafe. I made sure my phone caught every lie, every step she took onto my land. When the patrol boat arrived, sirens bouncing off the water, Karen straightened up, waving her phone, demanding I be removed. The deputy listened, then turned to me. Is this your campsite? My property. I have documentation. Karen tried to cut in, insisting she was enforcing HOA rules. The deputy looked at my boundary markers, the signs, and then at my deed, an old map, county file before the HOA existed. Ma'am, he said, you're trespassing. Karen's face drained white. She stammered, tried to say she was protecting the community, but the deputy cut her off. You filed a false report. That's a crime. The evidence was right there. Videos of her trespassing, tried to enforce power she didn't have. The deputies cited her for trespassing for harassment, and, most satisfying of all, for filing a false emergency report. A couple days later, a letter from the HOA arrived, signed by the board, minus Karen, formally acknowledging they had no authority over my land. Every fine, every warning retracted. The last paragraph said Karen acted independently and her actions did not reflect the HOA's policies. Translation? They threw her under the bus. Word spread fast. By the time I hit the deli counter in town, folks were whispering, "Did you hear what she did?" The same people who used to duck their heads now spoke bold, like villagers after the giant falls. Karen was removed from the board at the next meeting. My neighbor recorded it, just in case. She tried to make a last stand, claiming she was protecting the community, but nobody responded. She avoided the lake after that. No drones, no clipboard, just silence. The empire she built on fear collapsed, and she stood in the ruins of her own arrogance. The change was slow, but it was real. Neighbors started coming back, quiet thank yous, a loaf of bread from the couple by the creek, an apology from someone who believed her stories. Kids returned to swim, kayaks drifted by. The dock became a meeting place again, not a battleground. One evening, Mrs. Harper, who'd lived by the lake since the 70s, brought me an old photograph, my grandfather on the dock, neighborhood kids fishing beside him, sunlight sparkling on the water. He never turned anyone away, she said. A lot of us grew up here because of this place. I stared at that photo for a long time, realizing this wasn't just land. It was heritage, memory, and a promise. After that, the lake healed. I repaired the dock at sunrise. No eyes watching, just cedar wind and the quiet splash of water. Back at the cabin, I found a note in my granddad's handwriting. Land remembers who protects it. And I finally understood. As the sun set, I lit a lantern, watched its glow ripple across the still lake, and felt the cove whole again. The fight was never about ownership. It was about honoring a promise. And if you made it this far, maybe you get it too. When someone tries to take what isn't theirs, standing your ground isn't just a choice. It's a responsibility. This is just one story, but I know there are others. So tell me, what's your HOA nightmare? What did you fight for? Or are you still fighting? Drop your story in the comments, because you never know who needs to hear it. And if you want more real justice, more little guy wins, stick around, because sometimes doing what's right is the only thing that lets a place and a person finally breathe again.